my buddy from the MMQB. He is Albert Breer back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Albert?
That was a heck of a lead in there. Is that NUTZ? Is that what you said?
Yeah, somebody on our youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show live stream, where people can watch us now live every day, basically said we just showed superstar Page kicking Del Tufo and Brockman in the nuts a few weeks ago, that somebody should do that to Jim Dolan. And I kind of, I don't
Well,
advocate for that sort of thing, but I'm
being a New Yorker, though, you could probably understand why.
That's right. It's crazy. All right, brother, let's get into it. Walk down the teams that are interested in Brady as you and I are sitting here right now, Albert Breer.
Yeah, and I don't know that the market is all that hot. I would just tell you, you need a lot of conditions in place to really want to go after them. You need to be willing to blow up their offense. Need to be willing to kind of put yourself on a 2-year timetable. Need to be willing to look and see in the near future where a rebuild is going to be coming. And you need to be willing to put talent around them. So, I think there's a limited number of teams that are interested. The Patriots are interested in bringing him back. The Titans are interested, but they're also interested in their own quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, who they're going to have to make a decision on over the next week. And then, the Raiders and the Chargers will also kick the tires on it. I know they're investigating the possibility of it, what it would take, et cetera, et cetera. So, those are the 4 teams that I'd sort of put in the group right now. We always have a surprise. I mean, people don't remember this, but the Broncos sort of came out of nowhere on Peyton Manning in 2012. So there's probably someone lurking out there, but those are the 4 teams I put in front right now.
What about the 49ers, Albert? Is there any smoke at all?
I mean, I talked to several people in that organization, and I just tell you, I did not sense that there was a great chance that it's going to happen. Now, maybe something changes. I don't know. And I'm not trying to shoot down what anybody else is saying, but that possibility seems somewhat remote right now. They're really happy with where they are, not just today, but if you look at what their next 5 years or so are going to look like. And that doesn't mean that they're 100% in on Jimmy Garoppolo for the next 5 years. I actually think Jimmy Garoppolo could be on the clock this year because, Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent next year. I'm just telling you, I don't think that they're of a mind right now to sort of go all in on the next 2 years and just have massive uncertainty beyond that because they're really happy with where they are right now.
I know they're really happy with where they are right now, but it's crazy, man. At some point, the age is going to have to catch up. But at some point, we also need to stop saying how old the man is, too, that he is still Tom Brady. And, he could take any team that's close and put him over the top. So why not the team that was 7 minutes away?
He's still, he's still a good player. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that went wrong last year was based on what was around him. The Patriots got old in a lot of spots at the end of last year. And, that sort of brings up an internal debate in New England with that organization where they're asking themselves, with so much age on defense, some age on offense too. Edelman's 34. Do we need to blow it up right now? And if you're going to blow it up, then you're not bringing it back. So I think certainly he can still play, and he can certainly be that guy for some team. You have to be right on the precipice, and I'm telling you, he takes great pride in his personal performance. As much as he loves winning, he also wants to, play really well the next couple of years. And that was what frustrated him last year was his personal performance suffered from what was around him. So you're going to have an appealing situation to him too. And so, you look at what the Chargers have. They'd have to fix their offensive line. Look at what the Titans have. Are they going to be able to bring back Derrick Henry? You look at what the Raiders have. Is he going to fit with John Gruden? There are questions in each of those places. And so it's really interesting. There's not a perfect scenario out there for him. And I've been saying this since December, Rich. I mean, I think what could wind up creating, his return to New England is the two sides look at each other and their best option is one another.
Well, what do you make of Tom Curran's latest report that the connection between Belichick and Brady went down yesterday on Tuesday and did not go well? What do you make of all? Because Bill was all business, like like he's an impractical joker usually. I mean, what do you make about all that?
Yeah, I would tell you, like my experience having been around that organization for 15 years. Bill isn't big on negotiating. Bill will look at each player coldly and say, "This is what I think you're worth," and it's not in a mean way. It's just this is where we see your value.
Right.
If you see it the way we do, then we can make that work. And that's sort of the way they approach free agency too. Like if you look at the way that they go into free agency at the combine, they may talk to 20 free agents and put values out there on those 20 players, knowing that most of those players are going to get more, but thinking, okay, two or three of those guys are going to come back to us, and we're going to get really good deals. It's just the way that they approach roster building. And so my guess is that Bill gave him a very cold, calculated, like this is the way we see it right now. And, you could certainly see if you're Tom Brady, as logical as some of that stuff might be, if you're Tom Brady and you put 20 years into the organization and you have 6 rings, and that franchise is literally worth multiples of what it was worth in large part because of you. You can see where you would take some of that stuff personally. And so, that's what this is all going to come down to was, Brady willing to come back on his terms, Belichick willing to come back on his terms, and whether or not those sets of terms could match up. And I haven't heard personally that things didn't go well last night, but if they didn't go well, then that's probably a pretty bad sign.
No, I know, but there's still so much time, man. I mean, there's two.
Yeah.
We're 2 weeks away from this decision having to been made, and then we'll see what Brady does get an actual offer. I mean, everybody could say we're interested, and then it actually comes time to brass tacks it, and the details come out from either contract length to money, or more importantly for Tom Brady, roster or comfort within the system, either scheme or actually who his TB12 system is allowed in the building in a way that maybe others are not. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be hammered out. That's the time frame, at least the way I see it. What about you?
And the system thing, like, don't underrate the system thing. I mean, like, you remember, like, when Peyton Manning went to Denver, I mean, like, Mike McCoy and Adam Gase and all those guys worked with him and basically were able to reconstruct his system in Denver. And they knew they were going to have him for 4 years, so they knew that it would work for 4 years. This is a little different. And, I can give you kind of an example, and I think this is why I think it'd be almost impossible to rebuild what he has in New England. The amount of institutional knowledge there, like they'll have something called Oakland, say, right? And, a young player will say, well, why do you guys call that Oakland? Well, because back in 2008, we ran this against the Raiders and scored a touchdown on it. And so, to have that level of institutional knowledge where Josh has worked with Tom for almost 20 years. Bill has worked with Tom for almost 20 years. That system is Tom Brady's system. It's been bastardized in a good way, where it's really form-fitted for Tom Brady. Is he going to be comfortable going somewhere else? I mean, Rich, I'm telling you, I've been told stories where he sits in that quarterback room studying defenses, and he'll be looking at the offense on the screen, and he'll say, what the hell is that? What are they trying to do? Like, I think he's very particular on what he thinks is good offensively, what he thinks works offensively, and I think it'd be really, really hard to recreate that somewhere else.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Give me a surprise that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Give me a good one.
I think, well, it wouldn't be a surprise if Gruden brought in competition for Derek Carr, would it? That doesn't count as one. I could give you, like...
It depends on who that is. Who's the competition?
If Ryan Tannehill gets out of Tennessee because Tom Brady lands there, I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Tannehill goes to Oakland, maybe even as the replacement for Derek Carr. So that would be one. I think the Jameis, Bucs situation's gone sideways because Jameis wanted a lot of money and the Bucs were turned off by that. Rivers with the Colts is something that's been discussed a lot. Something that would be surprising. Here's one. Don't be surprised if at running back, if Kenyon Drake, who was traded in midseason for basically nothing, right? Mm-hmm. If Kenyon Drake gets more than Melvin Gordon, how's that?
On the free agent market.
On the free agent market. I wish I had something better for you. That's kind of lame.
No, it's not at all. No. Look, Albert, I'm asking you to make some sort of prediction or no. That wouldn't be too. That would be somewhat surprising. What are we hearing about Gordon? Where he might wind up? What do you think on that? That's under the radar.
His market's a little tougher because, like I said, like Kenyon Drake, somebody who brings value in the passing game. He's more of a 21st century back. Gordon's like an older school back. And so, like his market is going to be like, does Derrick Henry leave Tennessee? Could he be a replacement in that sort of system? I think it's going to wind up being something like that. And I would tell you this, like, I think, and you were just at the combine, so you saw all these kids up close. One thing I have heard is that it might be hard for some receivers and running backs to get paid.
Oh, period.
Because the draft class at both of those positions are really, really good. Like
no
a
question.
receiver, if you're one of these teams, are you going to go pay Amari Cooper $18 million, or are you going to draft one in the second round who may be able to start for you and make less than $2 million?
How about this? How about this, Albert? We could sit here and say that no free agent running back and no free agent wide receiver will make more next year than Tony Romo.
I like that. There you go.
I think that's entirely possible.
Tony Romo's making almost as much as he did as a player, which is crazy.
It is nuts. In terms of an announcer making more as an announcer than he is as a player, and we're talking about an NFL quarterback on top of all of it. But yeah, I mean, seeing the wide receiver.
Hey, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
It's a media guy now, though, so that's good for all of us, right? Rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, that's the theory. Let's see it put into practice, brother. We'll see how that works. Okay, and before I let you go, what is the latest on the collective bargaining agreement? You and I spent many a day on NFL Network together, me in the Los Angeles Total Access studio, you on a Washington, D.C. or New York City street corner live. That was 10 years ago, for crying out loud, next year.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Yeah.
Time flies, Albert, when we have labor peace.
Yeah.
So the question is what's happening here? Because it does factor into tags, and it does factor into whether there's more or less pie for Dak and other players as well. What do you have for me on that front?
God, me and you did full shows. Oh. I like right now the NFL and NFLPA lawyers, the lawyers for both sides are meeting and they're putting together the language for what's going to be a 300-page document. Within a few days, I think, hopefully by the end of the week, maybe early next week, that document will go out to players. And then they're going to give the players some time to digest it. Then after that, the players are going to vote on it. And, we're sort of in a key stretch here because the NFLPA's rep meetings are next week, the 8th to the 11th in Miami, and they're going to be electing a new president. So if this thing doesn't go through, we could have a pretty major problem in our hands because then the players are going to be sitting there and they're going to say to themselves, well, what do we have to prepare ourselves for? We have to prepare ourselves for the possibility there's going to be a lockout in 2021. And so at that point, you would think that they would elect a president who would probably be a little bit more of a fighter, which, I mean, of course, could change the dynamic of the whole thing altogether. And so we're in a critical stage here. The feeling I get, Rich, is that the union and the league, both sides, like, really feel like they put together a strong deal. But certainly there's some dissension in the ranks of the players, and it'll be interesting to see if the rank and file vote against this, because one of the key parts of the deal, the mandate of the NFLPA was go take care of the average player. Well, the average player in the NFL makes the minimum, and about half of the membership, maybe even more than half of the membership, is on the minimum, and those guys would each get an immediate $100,000 raise with this. And so I just, even if, the executive committee and the player reps are against this, it's very hard for me to see where so many guys in the minimum being basically offered a six-figure raise right away would vote no.
So which will we know about first? The CBA is accepted or rejected, or Tom Brady's contractual status?
I think we'll probably, so it'll be March 16th is a tampering period. March 18th is the beginning of free agency.
Yes.
Yeah, if the CBA is still in flux at that point, I would think that they would push back the beginning of the league year. So we'll say CBA first. That's what happened in 2006, by the way, you may remember. I believe they pushed back the start of the league year a day or two to accommodate the completion of CBA. So if the CBA is not done by the beginning of the league year, I think they push it back a day or two.
Well, that gives more time for the Brady decision because the new league year is kind of the witching hour.
That's more oxygen for everybody to discuss this thing and speculate on this thing. And yeah. March 18th can't get here fast enough, Rich. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, it's right around the corner, brother. Good to see you in Indianapolis. Thanks for the call, Albert.
Absolutely. You too, Rich. Appreciate it.
Right back at you. That's Albert Breer.